Hello, and welcome to Overcome, a mental health podcast. I am your host, Travis White, and this is a place for you to share your mental health stories. I'm very excited for tonight's guest. I'm speaking with Grace Ogren. Grace is a clinical research specialist at recovery.com, dedicated to advancing research initiatives and disseminating crucial findings in the field of mental health and recovery. Her work is fueled by a personal journey through recovery, which profoundly informs her approach to helping others understand and navigate their paths to healing. Grace, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be here.
Yeah. Well, it's a pleasure to have you, and I think we're going to have a great conversation.
Definitely.
And without wasting any time, I'm just going to turn the time over to you to tell us about your journey.
Yeah. I have struggled with depression mostly throughout my life. Started as a teenager and then just kind of progressively got much worse over the years. So I had an episode as a teenager, and then more recently as a young adult, I had a severe episode. So it's been that kind of feeling of it's over and then it comes back. And navigating that, it was very painful and difficult to have it come back. And I went through intensive treatment recently, and that is also where I was diagnosed with type 2 bipolar. And I found that explained a lot, like the very cyclical nature of my depression. And so that was, I think, pretty major in getting me on the right medication. Whereas before I was mostly on antidepressants, but with bipolar, it's mood stabilizers that are important, and antidepressants can even like make it worse in cases. I think finding that out was really huge for me, and that was a big part in my journey recently. And I have done ketamine therapy for depression, and recently I've been doing the keto diet, actually, because there's been some studies published on that for bipolar. So I just tried it, and I think it's been helping. So I feel like I've tried a lot. I've been to kind of all the levels of treatment that there are, and yeah, learned a lot.
Yeah, have you, since you've been diagnosed with bipolar, with the medication they have you on, have you felt like that's helped you out a lot compared to what you were on before?
Yes. Yeah, it was tricky again, like, as you probably know, getting the dose right. So it took a while to start feeling the positive effects, and I did get some rough side effects, but now that it's been figured out, I do feel a pretty big, like a settling feeling is how I would describe it, just more leveled out. Like with bipolar 2, I never had mania. It was hypomania. And for me, that was a very minor part of my experience with it. It was the depression that was so bad and so frequent. Those major episodes were frequent. So getting that, it gives me a sense of confidence, though, to know that there are these medications that can help. Like that's maybe why they weren't working before, because I wasn't on the right ones. Yeah.
And I feel like diet can also play a big role into all this. And that's one thing that I don't think that everybody realizes or relates diet back to mental health.
Yeah. And with bipolar 2 specifically, it's misdiagnosed as depression usually. And it can take, I think the average is like 10 years to get an accurate diagnosis. And that's when you can start treating it like type 2 bipolar. And that's, yeah, much different than how you treat depression medication wise. It is. And then to know mentally that that's what it is, that's, I think, huge too. Because before I was like, I don't know if depression really makes sense. Like it
Yeah.
didn't feel right. And to know what it really is, I think that it demystifies it in a sense and removes some of the fear of like what is happening and why. But when you know what it is, for me, it's easier to just understand it and have less fear.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I feel like getting diagnosed with something, it's like one of those things where you're almost, well, do I want to be diagnosed? Because
Yeah.
it's like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it was kind of like, oh, dang, but also a relief. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
a
it's like I don't want to
complicated.
be diagnosed, but I do. I want to figure
Huh?
out what's going on, but I don't.
Yeah, like I want to know what it is, but I don't want to have it.
Yep, exactly.
You know?
Can you Are there any pivotal moments in your life that you can think of that shaped your mental health story?
Yeah, I moved when I was like almost 13 out of state, and we were living in a very, very rural area. And I think that contributed heavily to like a sense of loneliness, like social disconnect, not having just human connection. We were in a very, very small town where it was like everyone knew each other already and we were kind of outsiders. And so there was that. And then there also just was not access to mental health care. Like when I needed it, there was, I think, like two therapists or one, and months on the waiting list. And there's just, yeah, there's nothing available. So I feel like that contributed, and just the stigma in these rural areas too, where it's not just stuff like this isn't really known as much. And it's like you don't get mental health treatment, you're just fine. So it was kind of like overcoming that, and just the true lack of availability. Like there's really just nothing. And yeah.
Yeah, I grew up in a small town, so I can relate to the side of where people from somewhere else move in. And at first, it's kind of like, well, who are these people? Because you're right, everybody knows everybody. And
Hmm.
so I could understand how that could be tough.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so you've been through all sorts of different types of treatment, from, medications to ketamine therapy. How did each of these impact your path to recovery?
Yeah. I'll start from the beginning, I guess. When I started medications, I was, I think, 14, and it was for panic attacks and like bad anxiety. I was getting those at school and it was becoming pretty unmanageable. So that, I think it was propanolol was my first. And from there, like the depression got worse. So then it was trying one antidepressant, and we'd give it like 2 months and then move on to the next. And it slowly reached the point where it felt like just throwing everything at me and seeing what might work. And just this kind of frantic effort to get something to work. And like right now, I wish I wasn't on so much when I was so young, like 15, 16. I was on a lot of things and high doses of things. And I had a lot of side effects usually, and I still do to this day. So medications are just tricky for me in general. And I think that's partially why I was interested in ketamine treatment, which I did like a year and a half ago. But that's all those negative reactions that I had to meds, and just the fact that it felt like they weren't working, antidepressants. And I think that's because it was not the right class of medication.
Which is I always hear these stories. I was lucky with like usually taking like very low doses of stuff, but, and I always hear these stories of people having to go through medication after medication. And I really feel for you because I somehow lucked out, but I'm right there with you with the side effects. It's like I have a seizure disorder,
Mm.
and every medication they put me on, I had really bad side effects. So now I try to stay away from certain types or classes of medication because I'm so afraid of what it's going to do to me.
Yeah, they can do some really bad stuff. And just even the black box warning, like
Hmm.
it felt very strange to be like, this is either going to help or make it all worse.
Yeah,
And it's like, is there something in between?
yeah. It's either going to help or destroy your life. You get to
Yep.
choose, right?
Yeah. Good
Yeah.
luck.
Yeah. I was on a high dosage of anti seizure medication because I was having so many. So the doctor was like, well, we need to get those seizures to stop. And I actually started hallucinating, and I had never hallucinated before in my life at
I bet that
all.
was
So
freaky.
it was really scary.
Yeah, man.
And I told him, and he said, well, if you're hallucinating, you need to go see a psychiatrist. And I went and saw a psychiatrist, and she's like, no, you're hallucinating because of the pills. So after that, I tapered off, and it never happened.
Wow.
So it was pretty
Get
crazy.
ping ponged back and forth. Yeah.
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 For somebody out there that's struggling kind of with the deep, dark depression today, what would you say to them? What would you say to be the first steps to get moving and to get past or overcome this hurdle?
I think I would feel so overwhelmed. Like I have my whole life ahead of me to bear this. And so what I would say is like you literally just get through the day. Like just, and how much of a like lift that is. I think people can underestimate like how much of a struggle that is when you are in a really dark place. And it's like thinking about the future can make it so much worse. And because you think, oh, I can't even take one more day like this. Like, how can I look at my life months or years down the line and there's no guarantee that it'll get better? It's kind of like just literally get through every second, take it second by second. And that just helped me not feel as like, I guess, paralyzed in a way by the future and hopeless. It was like lock in for, the next few seconds and then make it through the next. And like if you don't give up, it will get better. And I feel more confident in saying that because I have had it come back so often.
You've been in the darkest, deepest part of the tunnel.
Yeah, very much so.
I actually spoke with somebody last night that mentioned that, like, sometimes I take 2 steps forward and then I feel like I take 5 steps back in that same day. And he said that the most important thing to remember is at least you took 2 steps forward.
Yeah. Yeah,
Like
like
it's this
how
small wins.
uh-huh. Like it just truly make it through. That's your responsibility. And don't tell yourself to do more, expect more. Like that's when it's that dark and bad, that's the hardest thing you can do is keep going. So
Yeah, I totally totally agree. What with your so when you actually did ketamine therapy, could you see like a difference that it made? Like I've never
I
tried it. I've heard stories about it. Like my friends have had some friends that have tried it and said this is great, but like I don't know. I've heard of like a mix of
yeah,
stuff. So
yeah. For me, it did not do much. I think overall it's not harmful, but I didn't notice the stuff I was seeing in the research. And I learned about it through my job, which was a website that has addiction and mental health treatment, helps you find that. And just I was researching some of the centers on the website, and I had never heard of ketamine treatment, or it was, I think, Spratovo. That's what I read about, and then I read more about like IV ketamine treatment, and just realizing it was a possibility was really cool. Um, and then I kind of tucked it aside, I guess, and then a year and a half ago, when things started getting bad again, I was like, maybe I should try ketamine because I know I understood how it worked because I needed to for my job. And it just sounded really, really promising, and just the lack of side effects because I knew I didn't tolerate antidepressants well. So that is what led me to it. And what I've seen is there's like a 30% chance that people will not have any positive reaction to it. But most like accounts of people's experiences, it was all very positive. So I went in with a lot of hope because things were really, really bad at that point. And it's very expensive for one. It's not covered by insurance. And if you're getting infusions, the like standard package of what you do is 6 sessions, and they're each like the place I went is they're each almost four. So it's thousands to do the full session, and then you're supposed to get maintenance doses as well. So I guess all that to say is I was very desperate, and the cost, it was like my parents helped out, and I just was like, if this works, like that would be life changing and life saving. And um, yeah, I went in with a lot of hope. And I did the IV infusion. There's two types of that, where you either get a bolus, I think they call it, or it's kind of just dripped in gradually. The first place I went, they did it with a bolus, which means it just takes effect quicker and it can be kind of more intense. So I didn't know that anything about that before I started, but yeah, I did the full 6 sessions and it was an experience. But yeah, at the end, I just was like, I don't think that made it worse, but didn't
It didn't
do
really,
what I had
yeah.
seen.
And you said there was no after effects for you, like side effects from doing it?
No, yeah, the actual, like, the day of, you're pretty much done with your day when it's over. Like, your vision is blurry and you're kind of really tired and dizzy and unsteady. So they're like, just sit down and like don't work or don't do anything. And then it's even before the sessions, they're like, make sure you're very relaxed and not like watching anything stressful or engaging in something like emotional, because it can affect what you see when you're supposed to be hallucinating, like totally dissociated and hallucinating. And that did happen for me. And the first time, it was very scary. I didn't realize how important music is to the experience. If anything, if I suggest anything about ketamine therapy, it's make sure you have like nice music. Because I was listening to, like, I think rainforest sounds my first time, and then I was seeing myself in just a dark forest, and it was really scary. And then after that, I did more like just classical music, and I started seeing like everything I would see would be with the beat. So it was like lights and pretty stuff. So music is huge. And then my second session, they actually dosed me, I think, too high. There was some issue with the dosing, so that was kind of scary, where they had issues with just waking me up, because you're supposed to come out of it gradually, but it was just too high of a dose, so that kind of made it
That sounds creepy.
scary. Yeah, it was. Yeah, to wake up to them, they're shaking me, and
So for you, what does your really low, darkest moments look like?
I I think it's feeling. I'm thinking of two things, but they kind of coincide. It's like such a complete disconnect from life that I feel like a huge burden on people, and then it kind of gets to the point where I just stop caring. And it's very strange. Like that's when I know it's really bad, when I like don't care about my family anymore. And when it reaches that point where I'm like, I truly, I don't care anymore. And like, I don't even have the feeling of being a burden. That definitely is maybe like one tier below that. And that is a sign for me that things are really bad. But it felt like for me, there was then a level above that where I just kind of felt like I was dissociated in a way, and just this really strange, like empty, I don't care anymore. I don't care about, yeah, my family, and even the guilt that I am thinking when I, think of suicide like that. It just starts to feel like you're in this glass box and everything is outside of it and it can't touch you or affect you anymore. And it just is like, well, I'm just done. Like that's to me like the bad, scary point is when I just am like shot and done. I don't care about anything anymore. And yeah.
Yeah, that's putting it, as you said, like a glass box. I really like kind of that, I guess, metaphor kind of thing that you used, because it's a great way of explaining it. Like it's, and those deep, dark times, it's like really hard to explain to somebody too. It's like
Mhm.
really hard to find the words.
Yeah.
It's like I mentioned before we start speaking it and coming out of this rut, and my wife's like, no, you got to explain it to me because I have a problem with dissociating.
Mm.
Like I'll get to the point where I wouldn't say like I have suicidal thoughts, but I wouldn't say I was like to the point where I would never do anything because I have like deep down I know that I have too much to live for. I have 3 young kids,
Mm.
an
Mhm.
amazing wife. Like I have too much to live for. But
Yeah.
it's like my wife's like, you need to explain this. I was like, I can't explain it. She's like, well, what's going through your mind when you dissociate? I was like, well, I lose track of time. Like I don't know. I so
Yeah.
out of like such a out of body experience that I don't even know what I'm thinking.
Yeah. Yeah, that's huge too, because that my parents would say the same thing, like, "Just tell me what you're thinking, tell me what's going on." It's like, I don't know. Like, it's feels like just a void, and but somehow it's bad. Like, there's this emptiness, but it's also, like, malicious in a way, and it's not pleasant. I feel like people might think, "Oh, it'd be nice to, like, not feel things," but when it gets to that point of disconnect or just you don't even know what you're feeling, like, that's kinda freaky, I think.
Yeah, it's very true. And it's like you mentioned that people saying like, oh, it'd be feel nice to feel empty. It's like this empty feeling when you're depressed isn't it's not a good place to be.
Not at all. Yeah, it's that's kind of what I feel like I am looking to end is when I feel like that.
Hmm.
It's like I think that's where, like, yeah, a lot of those thoughts can come from is like, if this is it, then I really don't care if I am here or not. So it makes for me it was like the suicidal thoughts became more intense, like the more empty I felt.
Yeah. Yeah, that's happened to me for sure as well. And it's I feel like everything you're saying, it's like ding 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 ding. Like it's truly just relatable.
Yeah, that's good and bad.
I get what you mean. What would you say though? What's been like the what's how am I had it in my mind as far as like recovery goes? What do you think has been the most important part of your like what's helped you the most? I should say.
I think it's my family. Like I credit them for uh just being there, period. But then also like I always felt like they believed I could get better. Like I'm thinking of my parents. Like they always held hope when I was like completely shot. Like I had nothing. And even though like I would get to a point where I that didn't matter to me and I didn't care. But in many moments I was like, well, I'm glad someone thinks I can get through this. And it gave me that very small feeling of like, well, maybe I can if they're so confident about it. And just their constant support. It was very, I think I'm very, very lucky to have parents that are so supportive and they didn't grow up in a like a culture where mental health was normalized in a way. So I feel like they have really like tried to understand it and embraced it and do understand. Um, and just kind of they go out of their way, I feel like, to be supportive. And it's not even necessarily what they did or said. It was just that knowing they were there. That was big for me. Yeah.
Yeah, they had your back through the thick and thin.
Yeah.
I think that's like really important to have people like that in your corner as you're
Hmm.
struggling with mental health battles.
Yeah. Just having someone believe when you don't. I think that's very, can be very important.
Yeah. I grew up in a place where it, like wasn't talked about. Like I didn't really know what anxiety and depression were until I started going
Yeah.
through it. At first, when like I started getting really depressed and really anxious, I think I was in denial. I think I was like more like, oh, that's not really happening to me. Like this isn't
Yeah.
real. It's just, it's all crazy to me. But
Hmm.
I'm happy that you have the supportive parents.
Yeah. Me too.
What if you could go back to like when, you know, your move happened and you started feeling these changes, the depression coming on and stuff, what would you say to your younger self, like knowing what you know now?
I think I would say that it's worth it is, yeah, what I would say, because I felt like the big question during that time. And my more recent, like, very bad episode, it was like, is what's the point? And like, I can keep getting through the day, but why bother? I was like, I can't take it if it comes back. Like, there's, I kind of felt this like refusal to subject myself to the possibility of it coming back. And it was like, is there anything about life that could make all of this worth it, all this pain, like just feeling the pain and getting through it? And it was like, I never felt confident in, like, I knew what you should say is like, yeah, it'll get better. You can find purpose in your pain. Like, once you reach the point of not caring, it's like, I would have liked to hear that it's worth it. And I think that would have been very encouraging to me. And it's something that I wrote a letter in treatment to my future self. And that's pretty much the same message that I said was like, you, you better get to the next day. And like, that's what it takes. That's how it gets better. And because when I'm depressed, I like lose all memories of being happy. And I've heard from a psychiatrist that that is what happens. He's like, depressed people have really crap memories. And so that's contributes to why it can feel like so endless. And that was why I wrote myself that letter, was just to say, like, just that that's not true. And I am living proof right now as I'm writing in this that it's gotten better. And I think there's something about hearing that from yourself and not like social media or a magazine that or anyone else, but from you who has experienced it and knows better than anyone else what it's like. I think that has been powerful. And yeah, that's what I would say to my past self as well.
Yeah, and I like that you mentioned that somebody with depression has a bad memory because sometimes at work, like when I'm in my dark moments, it's like I'm an IT project manager, so there's lots of moving parts and pieces that I have to remember. And there's days where I'm
Mm.
like, I just don't even know what to do
Yeah.
because my only thought that moment is, how do I get through the day?
Hmm. Yeah. And that is like, I had to take a leave of absence, I think starting in November. And that was part of why I was like, I cannot function. Like, it feels like my brain is not working. I can't do my job. And that was kind of its own separate thing from feeling depressed and suicidal. Like, those were the issues, but the effects of depression, like, it can be so much more than you would think, and so kind of all encompassing. And you wouldn't think, I feel like, that something could be that powerful and just kind of be not visible. Um, but there's so many like layers to it and sides of it, and people experience it differently. Um,
That's absolutely kind of crazy that you took a leave of absence in November because I did too.
really.
Mine was for, so I mentioned earlier, I have a seizure disorder. Mine came, seizures came back really, really bad because I've had them since 2009. So I've had them for years,
Mm,
but they kind of died down to the point where I'd have like one or two a year and I'd just get migraines. So I wasn't like really
no.
taking anything for them. And all of a sudden I just had a cluster of them, spent a couple days in the hospital. But every time I have a seizure, it's like my mental health. Like, it's like, well, here we are too. Like, we're going to
Mm,
add to this. So I took a leave of absence to like around the same time to work on myself. And that's why I had to focus on it. I took a lot of time this year and the end of last year to kind of like figure out who I am and what I have to do to get better.
Hmm. Yeah, that's huge. Yeah, I'm glad that I did that because it for me it felt like are you just being a baby and like you're it's not that bad. But I had kind of that switch go off where I was like, it's kind of like do or die right now,
Mhm.
and like I need to really take this seriously, really throw everything at it, and because also living now that I live in a bigger city, there's actually resources. So it's like I actually have options and I should try them. And so that's also what led me to ketamine. It was like it's actually here. I can do it. And then I was in a PHP program, partial hospitalization, and I went to residential, and it was just to have all of that nearby and actually accessible. That was huge. Yeah.
And so I'm curious though, how long have you been doing the keto diet for?
I started the end of March, so a few months.
And can you have you been able to tell any changes from that?
I kind of hate to say it, but I have, and I only say that because it kind of sucks to not be able to eat like most food, but I feel like it's worth it every time. Every time I feel annoyed with it, I'm like, well, I know what can happen, and I don't know for sure, if that's exactly what's been helping, but I did feel like once I started, I reached a new level of like calm and the sense that the other shoe wasn't about to drop. Like I felt like that kept me very like nervous and anxious and just like I could not engage with life or feel happy or anything because it was like it's going to be gone tomorrow, or it could be. Just that alone is takes your joy, I guess. And so with keto, I noticed it made me feel more like I felt like things could go wrong or something bad could happen and I'll still be okay. I'll still be it's not gonna start the cycle again. And when before it was like I just kind of living in fear of what is gonna trigger it next, and like what maybe I'll just wake up and nothing will trigger it, but I'll still feel bad. So it's not I don't see it as a cure by any means, but I think if it helps even like 1%, that's like worth it for me
Mm.
because it can just get so bad. Yeah, but I was very, very hesitant to start it, and I avoided it for months because I was like, life is already hard and now I have to cut out carbs and sugar.
Now I have to watch what I eat and
Yeah, yeah. So I did wait until I was doing better. Not like 100%, but I was enough better to where I could stomach the idea of keto.
yeah, my mother-in-law is on the keto diet and she like so I we go to her house and eat dinner almost every Sunday. And so I when I go there I call it the keto cleanse. But that's I had to I'm not on the keto diet, but I that's one thing that I had to do at the end of last year was I kind of cut back on sugars and
Mm.
um I eat less like I eat more like gluten free. Overall I just eat more healthy because I actually the types of seizures I got diagnosed with this last round are non-epileptic. So they say that they make them sound like they're all just when they're called let's see PNES, what was it, psychogenic non-epileptic seizures,
Mm.
and they used to call them something else. So it makes you almost feel like they're calling you crazy for having these seizures because they're not the same. Like they're still seizure, but they're not classified the same as ones that like release from your brain. So no medication works for them. So I actually went to like a more, what do you call it, natural doctor, and not like
Mm.
a, and they said, change your diet. And so I did. And I actually started seeing the seizures improve, and
Oh,
I started seeing my moods change. And like, I was like, oh, so I'm feeling more naturally happy and I'm not
yeah.
seeing the seizure stuff. So
Hmm. I think
I,
that's a big part of it for me too is it feels natural.
Hmm.
And I get not necessarily that medications felt artificial, but there's something just very slightly different
Yeah.
about how I feel now. Yeah.
So I commend you for finding something like that and sticking with it.
Yeah. And it's
Changing your diet is not really easy to do.
no. Yeah. And I kind of hesitate even to tell people or recommend it because like it is huge and you don't want to make like I really got almost mad when people like my parents do keto and so they're like just do it, it won't hurt, and I'm like I don't want to have to do keto to feel better, like I don't, but then I just was like I'll just try it and you do adjust, and I'm glad that I tried it, but it yeah.
What would you say was like the hardest food to give up?
I always miss, I never even ate them much, but like crumble cookies, I've had them like 3 times in my life, and then that's always what I think of when I want something like that, and donuts. And then coffee too, you can't I used to get a lot of coffee with, like, honey or syrups in it, and now you can't have the fun coffee
Yeah.
drinks, but yeah.
Yeah, I was a huge like soda drinker, and that's one thing I did was like completely stop drinking soda.
Oh.
And I drink what's called Zevia, so it's like a kind of helps you get rid of that. I guess the soda as a vice,
Mm.
and it has a different type of sugar in it. They don't classify it as a soda, so I'll drink that, but it's not the same tasting. It's not doesn't
Yeah.
compare to an ice cold Coke.
Alright.
So I just have honestly a few more questions here, just because you just make me curious about uh, a lot of things. Because I think in ways like our story actually is similar in ways, but not, if that makes sense.
Mhm. Yeah.
So, what do you think they could change as far as like the mental? Well, let me rephrase that. What do you think they could change in rural areas to like help improve mental health?
I think just making sure people know it's there, because there's even like the lack of physical treatment options, like that's you can't do much about that even if you tell people it's there, but they can't get in like that. It's not super helpful, but what I've learned at my job at recovery.com, it's like there's just seeing the amount of options when I started working there, it was really like bittersweet. Like there's so much out there and I just felt like burned that I didn't know that. Like there's virtual programs and you could there's places just for kids who are depressed, and like finding that out was really like it was hard to know that that was out there, and when we would have done like anything, when you're at that point, and then it feels even more hopeless when you think there's nothing out there. So I feel like making people very aware of what is out there, like you can, if it's at a bad point, you can travel if you need to, you can, but mainly like virtual. There's virtual, either just therapy or like intensive outpatient partial hospitalization, like that can be done virtually. And I like in person better for that type of stuff, but just it's something, and it's if it's either that or sitting by yourself and thinking no one out there cares or there is nothing, I think anything is better than that. So just the knowledge that like there is someone, people do care, people do try to treat this, and yeah, you're not alone. And I think that finding out people care enough to treat it is what helped me feel not alone. Yeah.
Yeah, and back when I was in my early 20s, I worked at a residential treatment center for teenagers. And I can tell you that I can't speak for all the people that work there, but the majority of the people that work there really care about the teenagers that come in. Like it's like otherwise you can't do that job.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what uh outlets do you do or do you have um to keep you grounded?
I think two main buckets. I write, and that is I guess that would be my passion, and that was something that really helped me get through the depression. Like I don't feel like it saved me, or anything like that, but it's just something that didn't get taken. It felt like I lost interest. It's one of loss of interest or pleasure in daily things you once enjoyed, like that. I lost, like, I used to paint and draw, and that all just kind of like flatlined. Writing just stayed, and that was a big factor in why I wanted to get better. Is like, I want to finish my book, and so I write books for young adults, kids my age when I was doing really bad, that just to have some. I used books as like a escape, and seeing characters go through something worse than what I was going through. Like that's what inspired me to write and to create a story and a character who was going through something worse. It felt like to me. And then I'd say, I'm going to see how she does this. And it's been like an outlet ever since. And it's been a really big part of my life and how I process, because I've never really connected with journaling, but I can use what has happened and what I have felt in fiction writing. And that's been, yeah, kind of life changing.
That's really, really cool. And would you say that you're like doing that type of creative work? Would you say that's more of an escape as well? Or does it actually
Yeah,
help you process like the difficult experiences?
I think it's a really good mix of both, because I do seek it out when I'm not doing well, but then there's also when I'm really not doing well, I don't want to do it. And then there's kind of like a medium. And when I'm in that spot, I feel like when I do the most like processing work, and just it can be very subconscious too, but I'm seeing these characters go through things that I can't even imagine happening to me. And or they make really big mistakes. They screw things up really bad, and things just seem like they're over. And it can just be very, yeah, like subconsciously helping me process. I think a lot is putting characters in bad situations basically, and then getting them through it.
That's really, really cool. I've thought about writing books, but I'm like, I don't have it in me to down and do it. And I don't think I have that type of an imagination anymore.
Yeah, they take a long time. I'm just about finished with one, but it's taking me a long time.
Well, I'm here in your corner and hoping that you get all done and edited and whatever needs to be done to get it out there.
Thank you. Thanks.
If you could just, I think, yeah, if you could make, sorry, I'm like losing my train of thought here. If you could make one change to the mental health system tomorrow, what would it be?
I think it would be finding some way to take care of people who are in the area between needing treatment and getting it. Like, in my experience, it took me a week of calling and leaving voicemails and emails just to get a treatment center to call me back. So I get kind of annoyed with this saying of like, just ask for help. And it's like, help didn't call me back. Yeah, there's this like fight you have to do. And I feel like that people don't know that. And once you're in that situation, it's so discouraging. It's like I'm trying to get treatment, and they don't seem to care, and that's their job. And so what I would like is to be like, we don't have a space for you right now, but here's what you can do,
Hmm.
or even just to acknowledge, like, sorry, or we're trying to get you in, and like, this is coming, don't lose hope. Like,
Yeah.
there's just this kind of like hands off, like, well, we can't get you in. Good luck. That is very frustrating
Yeah.
to me and very
They need to,
dangerous.
well, extremely dangerous. Like,
Yeah.
because most of the people that are calling these centers and trying to get in there are not in a good spot.
Yeah.
And just to, like, if they could leave the person with like a little bit of light and hope
Yeah.
to be like, okay, well, maybe in a week they could have something like,
Hmm. Yeah. It's just, they kind of leave you with, well, like, go to the ER if it gets worse. And like, that's, yeah. But something for the people who are waiting is what, and I don't know exactly what that is, other than communication from admission staff of what's going on, because it can feel very much like you're in the dark, and it's just kind of, if you get lucky and they take you, that's when it will work. And then if you're, everything else is just out of your hands, and it feels like they're kind of holding back information, or yeah. So maybe overall, I would say just better communication. Um,
Sense. So this is a question that I ask all my guests, just because I like to hear the different responses I get. It's a pretty generalized question, but what do you touch base on it a little bit? What do you feel is the biggest stigma within like when it comes to mental health?
I feel like it's kind of the way that they think it puts people in a box. Like it, especially for me with like bipolar, I always want it's type 2. Like because then it's like, you have bipolar, you're crazy, and it's like that's all you are, is your diagnosis. Just the language even that I have used, like I am depressed, I am bipolar, like that's the language that I think perpetuates the, maybe not even like judgment on people's part, but just like not being able to see you beyond the diagnosis. And that for me makes it feel like, well, maybe I'm not anything beyond this. But I feel like that's very not true. You can be so many things, and your diagnosis is just part of it. And it's not, it doesn't like doom you to anything, or it's not a cage, you know?
Yeah, I agree. I think that's a huge one. I like how you said that because it's like just because you're diagnosed with something doesn't make you that thing. Like you're still you. You're still Grace. You're
Yeah.
still this creative writer. You're still the person that works at recovery.com. Like the bipolar part is just something that adds to you. Like
Yeah, it's just a facet. And people experience each diagnosis so differently too. Like there's symptoms that are the same across, but the way that people experience them is like, so to assume like, oh, you must be this way because you're that, like that can be very frustrating. It's like you have this mainstream knowledge of depression or bipolar anxiety, and that not realizing how different it can look on people. So I think education is what's a lack of education is what's contributing to that.
yeah, I think education is like crucial.
Yeah.
Kind of goes back to so I feel like I'm either really anxious or like really depressed at times. There's like no in between. So when I was like dealing with really high anxiety, my wife's like, you need to tell me this, you need to explain this. I was like, I can't, like, I don't know how. And I mean, I would try to tell her all these things and she didn't understand it. And this last year, she has actually experienced some anxiety.
Mm,
And so she's like, you know what? You're right. I finally understand it. I was like, you know, like it's, I laugh about it now. It's not that I want her to be anxious, but it's like where she got to the point where she said, I finally understand what you were going through. It
mm,
like hit something to me. And I'm like, and I think some people kind of treat people that are diagnosed with certain things a certain way because they haven't been through it, whether it's with
yeah.
themselves or with a family member or loved one, whatever. And where can people find you?
I have on recovery.com, I write articles. So I have if you look there's a resource hub with articles. I'm there. And I am on LinkedIn and Instagram. I'm Grace J. Ogren on Instagram. And I have a website, just graceogren.com.
I'll make sure to add all those to the show notes here. And one last thing, we've covered quite a bit on the show today. Is there anything you'd like to discuss that we did not discuss?
I don't think so. I feel like we covered all the main things, and the things that I feel like people don't know and that need to be talked about. I feel like we had really good discussions on that.
Well, thank you so much for coming on and being vulnerable and having such a raw conversation.
Yeah. Thank you for hosting how you do and also being vulnerable.
And I'm in your corner, hoping that you just keep above the water and push through all those dark times.
Yeah, right back at you. Thank you.
And it's nice to have someone on the show that I can relate to as much as I did with you. So, well, and so thanks again for coming on, and thank you to all those listening. If you were inspired by what was said here, please pass it along. Follow us on Instagram and YouTube. It's where I do most of my work, and push the share button, the like button, and until next time, thanks again for listening.